Hey, welcome back to Rob's Garage Woodworking. Today I've picked up a new air compressor. This is a Sanborn air compressor. I bought this at Princess Auto, and um, their labels, they have a couple of different labels. I bought it for $5.50. Their regular price label says $6.79, but they advertised it in the flyer, I believe, for $7.29, and then marked it down to $5.49. um, this is a 30-gallon. It's portable. It's 135 max psi, although they say that it will turn on at 125, charge up to 155, and then kick out at that point. It's 5.5 CFM at 90 psi, 6.3 CFM at 40 psi. It's 1.6 running horsepower, and it's a dual voltage motor, so you can switch it over and run it at 220 or 240 volts, but it's set for 120 volts. Now, this is apparently like a 15 amp motor. So here in Canada, your workshop plugs are supposed to be 20 amp. A lot of times in your garage and stuff, you'll have 15 amp circuits, but their new thing is 20 amps. So if you have this potentially in the cold, when it starts up, it may trip your breaker. So this is very common for the bigger compressors. So once you get past like the little guy compressors and you get into the bigger ones like the 20 gallons and up, even the oilless compressors. Now this is an oil compressor with the twin air compressors in it, right? And it's a single stage, and I'm not, up on my air compressors. Like dual stage is obviously better, but I think that it compresses air on the downstroke and the upstroke at the same time. That's my guess. Anyway, so this one, like I said, I bought it. I had a 17-gallon oilless Campbell Housefield, and it was really good, and it lasted me for about 10 years, and it finally gave up the ghost the other day, so I had to replace it. So I went a little bit bigger. I didn't find anything really decent at a decent price, so I had to spend a couple extra $100 and get this one. So, uh, yeah. Anyway, so this compressor itself, it's got a couple of gauges. It's got the gauge, the pressure of the tank, and then you can adjust the other gauge with this guy here and adjust how much pressure is going to your tools, because some tools operate at lower pressure, some operate at a higher pressure, and you can regulate that with your regulator, obviously. And then you have the off and on switch. Basically, it's off or auto. Auto just means that when it needs air, it'll turn on. It is a portable unit. It has some wheels. It has a solid steel axle that's welded onto the tank in 3 places. The wheels are plastic, and they have these really cheap caps on the wheels, so they're really awful. I haven't obviously used it and been wheeling it around, but with that setup, it's really not meant to be wheeled around too seriously. So you move it around your shop and you have to move it here or there, fine, but don't expect to go cross country with it. Also, the handles on this one, from moving it around, the handles are way too small. It should be like have a nice big bar up here so you can really grab a hold of it and move it around. These ones, you're kind of off balance all the time, and it's either falling down or falling back straight up, right? Just because the handles are in such an awkward position. They should be longer so you have more leverage, obviously. Anyway, so what it says in the manual, I have the manual. Yes, I look at the manuals. It says to open the, they call it a petcock or something. Where is it? Where is it? Yes, a petcock. Yeah, who came up with that? Anyway, so I've opened that at the bottom. It says turn it on, leave it running for 30 whole minutes with that valve open at the bottom. Now it says that's the break-in period for the pump, I guess. And it also right here, that little gauge, that shows your oil. And it says it takes synthetic compressor oil. What else does it say? Synthetic non-detergent air compressor oil. All right, and you have to make sure that's filled to the dot. It's either slightly below or to the top of the dot. But basically, the dot is your oil level line. On this, because they have to turn it in, that's why they use a dot instead of a level line, because they could crank it a little bit too much and then your level line would look like this. Anyway, now Sanborn, I don't really know much about Sanborn. It is, they say, assembled with pride in Springfield, Minnesota, and the plate on the side that's welded to the tank says it's by Sanborn Manufacturing, Inc. It says here that they've been around since 1963, but I've never heard of them before. But I'm assuming Princess Auto, sometimes they get some crappy Chinese stuff, but most of the stuff I get there is of decent quality, and they do have a 2-year return policy. So if anything really happens, you can return it. It's really amazing. Like, they have a 2-year warranty on this, and then pretty much everything. They have a great warranty and a great return policy. So that's here in Canada, obviously, Princess Auto. And yeah, so now I'm going to turn it on. I'm going to see if it works. It says to keep it as close to your breaker panel as possible, and I've got about 6 inches of wire to the plug from my breaker panel. So I'm hoping that's good enough. Like I say, it's a 15 amp motor on a 15 amp circuit, and there's a surge when you turn it on, and that'll be worse when it's frozen, when it's 15 degrees below or 20 below or more. That's in Celsius, obviously. And, when it turns on, and the oil will be thicker and whatnot. So anyway, we're going to turn it on. We're going to let it run for 30 minutes with the valve open at the bottom of the tank, the drain valve, or the petcock, as it's called. That'll be open at the bottom of the tank, and it's just going to be pissing air out the bottom. And yeah, anyway, here we go. Oh, that's not so bad. It's quieter than I expected. Another thing I just wanted to say, before I even turned this on, I made sure that the belt was to the proper deflection. You have to make sure it's tight enough. I made sure that all the bolts and nuts and things all over this were all tightened up, and then everything else appears to be good. It appears to be tight, and we're going to check that after. But here we go. Back to the break-in. Alright, so the drain valve's right at the bottom, the petcock, or whatever they call it, is right down at the bottom, and it's really awful to get to. Basically, you have to lie on the floor to get to it. Now, some people have said that you can put another valve in, and like a long pipe and stuff, and put a valve at the end of that, which is probably a good idea, but you want it to drain the water, right? So the water, when you compress the air, it will condense water out of the vapor of the air, and it'll settle down at the bottom of the tank, and over time you'll have to drain that out. Now, they suggest every day you drain your tank. That's totally unrealistic. Nobody on the planet's going to do it, and especially since it's such a pain in the butt. But if you do it, every couple of months or whatever, you're probably still fine. What they're concerned with is rusting of the tank, and that you'll develop holes and stuff in the tank, and that would be no good. But yeah, like, they should last a good long time. So anyway, so now what we're going to do is, now that we've got that closed, I'm going to turn it on, and I'm going to measure how long it takes for it to fill up from empty to full. So let's get the stopwatch here. And your mark, set, go. Let's do this again. So it took 6 minutes, 0.07 seconds to fill from empty. Next, we're going to put the hose in it, and I will use the air gun, the blowgun, and I'll empty the tank until it turns on, and then we'll run the stopwatch from when it turns on to when it stops, and that's the recovery time. So we're going to measure the recovery time. So now is also a good time to check for air leaks, so have a listen, put your ear around, check to see if there's any leaks down below, anything around here, any of your connections. Okay, now this is a quick fit, so this one's just a push connect, which is nice. So we're gonna sometimes you have to pull them. This one you don't, you just push it in. Look at how quick that is. This one I have to pull back to put on my other one. There we go. So let me get my stopwatch again, and we'll just use the blowgun, and as soon as it kicks on, I'm going to press start, and we're going to measure how long it takes. Okay, so take the air out. Here's your recovery time test. Alright, so the recovery time, so when the time it kicked on to the time it kicked off was 1 minute and 25 seconds. So that's pretty good. Probably a little bit better than my old one, that's for sure. Anyway, you can hear the difference. Like this is it's still loud, yes, but it's not as high pitched and whiny as an oilless one is. Also, I don't believe the pistons move quite as quickly as the oilless ones. It seems to be a little bit less speed to it. I'm not 100% sure of that, but that's what it seems like to me in general observation. Anyway, so this is the animal so far. You can actually feel that it's kind of warm. The tank itself is kind of warm. The motor is warm-ish. The pistons are, the case is a little bit warm. It's not too bad. So you don't really want to hold your hand against it. This isn't bad. You could do your hand here, but up here it's a little warmer. Overall, they're cooler than I expected them to be, so that was pretty cool. It didn't trip my breaker at all so far that I've used it, and that's a 15 amp breaker. Now that doesn't say that it won't trip it. It just hasn't yet. So far I like it, and I'll keep you posted. If I have any issues with it, I'll let you guys know. But as for now, it looks like it's going to be a 2 thumbs up beast for me. And really, if there's any kind of issue that's going to happen, it probably won't happen for quite some time. So I'll let you know. All right. Anyway, thanks for watching.